Well, all right. We are back again, guys. I am your host, Mark Hansen. I'm a lifestyle advertising photographer, and let's fucking do this. All right. Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Visual with Mark Hansen. I am your host, Mark Hansen, lifestyle and advertising photographer who is talking to all the people in the world who help design and create all those lovely things you see out there, give you a little bit behind the scenes, a little bit of background on them. Today, my guest is Senior Art Director Priyanka Patill, and she is with FCB Health. And we're going to learn all kinds of stuff. We're going to learn how she got from Indiana, no, India. She got from India to New York City through Atlanta. So she came to Atlanta and then ended up in New York City, all from Mumbai, India, not Indiana. We're also going to find out how she uses Play-Doh and origami to keep things fresh for her job. We're going to talk about how personal work matters. We're going to have some advice for future art directors. We're going to find out what her walk-up music would be. And one of the coolest things that happened to her that was life-changing and really helped her get on her way. So check this out. You're really going to like it. Some great advice if you want to be an art director, some great advice just in general. And let me know what you guys think about this whole thing. Like it, thumbs up it, share it, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. And I look forward to hearing what you think. Go ahead and start chatting it up.
Yeah.
So first of all, where did you grow up?
So I was born in Mumbai, India. I grew up there, did my bachelor's in French literature because I was very interested in foreign languages. And my dad was like, oh, no, you need to know one more foreign language, like any other Indian parent, like you need to know more when you already are doing, not that you are not not doing great, but you need to
Right.
know. So it's funny, but I just fell in love with the language. And since my eighth grade, I think I had been learning. I was then eventually giving a little bit of tutoring, but
Wow.
long story short, it just pushed me into doing a bachelor's in French literature.
Did,
And
did you ever
so
live in France?
that pushed me to apply for universities in France eventually. And I also was motivated to go to this exchange program in 2010-9 because of that. And I think that was one of the life-changing experience, like true life-changing experiences for a young kid to be like, you've not traveled abroad, and then you
Yeah.
suddenly go to a country that doesn't speak your language, but you know something, but you also know a lot about the place and the culture because you've learned the language. And I think um, learning language teaches you more of the culture and the people and the history
Mhm.
than just learning about the geography and history of so the approach, if you take that approach of learning a language, then it just changes your perspective and you feel like you know more about them.
That makes sense.
It's You feel a sense of belonging. So that was my experience. And so that's what I did in Mumbai, bachelor's of French literature. And then always been into art, drawing, doodling, like any other creative will say
Yeah.
this. But I have been doing that. And somewhere deep down, I was always practicing my craft, no matter what school I went to, and French and things like that. And then I was like, no, I think this is the final calling. Like, I have to pick this. And then I did my bachelor's in
Well,
uh,
when did the whole art thing start? At what age did you really start getting into that?
like it's I mean, since I remember,
Yeah.
I don't know, 4 or 5, I would just kept drawing things that I really liked, I saw, and then people would be like, oh, you seem to be talented. And then I was enrolled into many drawing classes, and I had one of the knock on wood, like one of the amazing teachers I could have ever asked for, who completely trained me through my undergraduate graphic design and commercial art advertising course.
Wow.
So right, so he started teaching me drawing when I was like 8, 9, like, and then all the way through. So he himself is exceptional and talented, but and that also gave me confidence to like pursue graphic design and advertising art as a profession.
So how'd your
Uh,
parents feel about that?
Initially my parents, were like, "Oh, you're so good at science and math, and you are such a hardworking, studious student." Um, and I like that, no matter, I mean,
Right,
no
yeah.
doubt. I loved biology, organic chemistry. I was like on, just knew a lot of things. But when I told them that, hey, I think I have to pursue this, like, um, and they were like taken aback and they were like, oh, but how are you going to, I think the main concern was um, financial independence
Mhm.
and security for any parent,
Oh yeah.
so like, hey, if you're going to be good at that, and they didn't doubt that I wouldn't be good at it because they knew I was very hardworking. It was just about, oh, are you going to be able to sustain your lifestyle
Right.
eventually, so that was the important question. And I think that's when my teacher really came into the picture, and then he kind of explained to them like, hey, this really opens up a lot of avenues that people still don't know about. It's not that restricting as it seems, in a culture where everyone wants to be doctors, engineers, and lawyers.
Right. Yeah.
When you say you want to become an artist, you're like, oh, you're
Yeah,
not
well,
going
that's kind of
to
what I
make
was wondering. I was like, when you said I want to be an artist, because I know when I was basically said I want to be a photographer, my father, who was a photographer, but he owned his own business doing not basically it was a wedding business, doing like
it.
everything for your wedding. It's a one-stop shop kind of deal. So I started shooting weddings for him when I was 16. But I went to school and I said, I want to be a photographer. I want to shoot rock bands. It was really my thing. My dad said,
Oh,
why don't you just become a entertainment lawyer and then you
oh
can
wow.
work with the rock bands and you'll make a lot more money. And I was like, I don't want to be a lawyer. So I was just wondering, because even in my family, it's just like photography.
Yeah.
It's like, how are you going to make a living being, a photographer?
Yes.
You're just going to shoot weddings all day long. And I hated weddings. So
Oh,
that
I
wasn't
see.
happen. Yeah.
So it's, it's always like, we always are faced with that situation. And then I explained to them, hey, the e-commerce is rising, the
Mhm.
app industry, and this is just 10 to 13 years ago, not too
Yeah.
long ago. And but the growth has been exponential, and now you need a website for everything. You need a designer. You need,
Mhm.
like you cannot do without it to simply explain. And I think they really understood that, and they were like, okay, but they never doubted my capacity in pursuing that. They knew I would follow through, so which was a great thing.
Yeah.
Just had to explain to them what I'm getting into,
Right.
which was great. And then after completing the bachelor's of graphic design and commercial art, I always wanted to go abroad and study, like take it a bit notch up and like just see how I am in a much bigger ocean,
Mhm.
when you are in the same city, grew up there, you have friends, family, you're in that comfort zone that you don't realize. And I was like, no, I need to take the leap. And I need to be okay with the uncertainty that comes with it. And and then I was like, just applying to universities, working through it. It was like a year and a half process to
Wow.
really, yeah, just to get everything in line, your deadlines, and then the whole process of acceptance and stuff. So um, after that, I picked SCAD Atlanta, Savannah College of Art and Design,
Yeah.
and there I was. The next chapter starts here
In the South.
in the South,
In
all
the
the way.
South.
Like,
Yeah. But at least it's Atlanta and it wasn't Savannah.
yes, yes. No, I'm a city person. Trust
Yeah.
me. Mumbai is such a crazy city, so it was a good change to still be in a city, and
Hmm.
city like Atlanta, and it's still a little slightly reasonably quiet, and just it's a good balance, I feel like, for someone coming from Mumbai, India, you
Right.
know.
It was
So
definitely better than Savannah. Savannah would have been a huge culture shock, change, everything, I'm sure.
yes, and I was like, no, I don't think so. I can,
Yeah.
I can go for vacation.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. To have to live in Savannah,
Yes.
especially after coming from Mumbai, I think, yeah, be a big shock to your system. So how'd you like Atlanta?
I loved living in Atlanta for several reasons. Like the weather was, I come from a hot and humid city all year round,
Right.
and Atlanta was like a good way to just settle in with the weather and just overall the population and just the vibe of the city. The first time I remember, I was like, there is nobody walking on the street.
Yeah.
Are there people here? But Atlanta is like everyone is in their car because
Hmm.
you can get from point A to point B without having a car.
Yeah.
So thankfully, I was living close by the campus. So for me, it was just walking up and down the street. But that was a very big, like a shock for a week. There's nobody. Is this safe? But
Yeah.
I loved Atlanta for the just the hospitality of people, something that I hadn't like observed in many other cities that I've been to. So it was very specific to the South.
Mm.
So I really appreciated that and the weather and it's just so green. I was like, oh, I was in Midtown and the I I go to the back gate of my building and there is this just forest. And there is a paved path that you just, walk through. And I was like, oh, this is great. This
Oh,
is such
yeah.
a great change. So it was a good balance. I really enjoyed living in Atlanta for, a few
How many years
years.
were you there? 4?
So it was like four and a half, four
Okay.
and a half, yeah, almost 4, yeah.
Were you in school the entire time?
I did school for like 2.5 years and then like a year and a quarter of internship and um, the place where I interned at, hired me. So it was like a year and a half sort of a gig with them. Amazing people again. They found me
Yeah.
on LinkedIn. I was like, I
Really?
need I need to get an internship. I'm like applying everywhere. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, I'm just going to keep applying. And one day I just get this message on LinkedIn. I was like, hey, we are looking for, and it was a health startup.
Okay.
Uh, but they were very to the point. They knew what they were looking for and very proactive. And they're like, oh, we would love a student from SCAD. And they were always looking for someone with like a master's degree in design. And it
Okay.
worked out. Yeah. Amazing time for a year and a half for sure.
That's very cool. So that was your first job out of school. Your
That was
internship
my
just turned into your
first.
job.
Yes, that was my first actual job in the US. And, I was like, um, just as an international student who had come across the Atlantic, it's almost the other side of the planet.
Yeah.
Know what to expect. People have different ways of working, different expectations, different styles of working.
Hmm.
So all that I had to really grasp, but I will have to say that um, this team that I worked with was absolutely like supportive. Like, they let me explore my design skills. They were open to something completely different. They were also very constructive in their feedback, and it was just a very what's the word? Um, like very supportive environment where you actually feel like you're growing.
Oh, that's nice.
You're not being judged too much, or yeah, constructive feedback is important, but not being judged. And
Yeah.
they had very realistic expectations, and so it was, yeah, I still talk about this team.
That sounds like a great first
Shout
job.
shout out to them, yes.
Very cool. So what was the name of the company?
So the health startup was a telehealth startup. It was called My Ideal Doctor. Uh,
Okay.
Now it's become uh, Relay MD, Rely MD.
Okay.
Uh, and but back then, when it was My Ideal Doctor, Adrian Davis, who's from Atlanta, Georgia, he was heading the company, and really very inspiring person for sure.
Good. So how difficult is it to say go from having a visa for school to having a work visa? Was that a difficult process or was it fairly easy for you?
It is very tedious, I would say,
Yeah.
overall, because when you're getting a student visa, it's very straightforward. Like, you have the admission letter, you're showing them that you're paying the fees on time,
Right.
and which is
That
valid,
helps.
yeah, and
Yeah.
you have some scholarship, you are capable, you have that level and standards, and then you just go do your usual application, and then they either approve it or not. But getting an admission was the main criteria. um, Moving to a work visa, like, because I am on, I belong to the artist category.
Hmm.
We do have a couple of options. So you can either go on a O1, which is the usually called as the artist visa category. But in order to be considered for that, or eligible for that, you or whoever the student is, we had to sort of have certain awards and achievements,
Oh,
like,
okay.
in the field. Like, if you are a photographer, then you are expected to have exhibitions and
Oh, wow.
shooting some, I don't know, big celebrities or something very significant in your field, basically showing that
Okay.
you are a very promising, extraordinary talent. So
That makes
basically, that's their sort of criteria. Like, you are doing extraordinary, and you really have a promising talent in this field, and you're, not just doing a job that gives you a paycheck, but you're contributing to your field in the true sense.
okay.
And the other option that international students usually have is the H-1B category, but that's, as we all know, is sponsored by
Mm,
the employer, like
right.
you, or the company. Like, you need to be in that company in order to be considered for that. You can do it on your own. But O1 category is more like you can either uh, initiate that process on your own, provided you have all this extraordinary stuff, or
Right.
at least promising
Yeah.
promising achievements and awards. Um, so you can do an individual petition, or sometimes, if you're in that category, sometimes if you're working for a company, they they try to do it under their, uh, through the company. So that O1 is a little more flexible. There is no timing that it needs to be done on the 1st of April, like the other H-1B, or they have a certain time during the year they have to do it. But O1 is, whenever you want to do it, whenever you're ready, if you're eligible, you go for that. It is, in terms of difficulty, it's, again, the difficulty is not about getting the visa, it is about having the achievements in order
Right.
to considered for that. So it's like, oh, I need to work for 5 years in order to have that.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yes, it is tedious, I will say. Like, you really have to be on top of your game, and I think what I would say is a student can take it too easy. Like, you have to keep applying for competitions and all those kind of other activities in your field, to if you really want to keep your O1 active
Right.
and keep renewing in future. So that would be a major difference. H-1B, it's it's like employer just submits your basic information, and then it's a lottery pick. So it's
Okay. My daughter, main reason I asked, my daughter did a study abroad in Italy. She
Mm.
came back home. She's getting ready to graduate. She's thinking about going back to Italy to get her master's, possibly, but or maybe go back there to work for a little bit. And so I was trying to figure out, like, I know it's easier to get your student visa to go over
Yes.
there, but then she was thinking about going over there to work, but she doesn't know what she would do. She want to be like a nanny or something. I'm like, I don't know if they're going to give you a work visa to be a nanny or to be a bartender or whatever.
Yes.
So
Oh my God, yes.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Maybe yes, or maybe yes, who knows?
Maybe, I don't know, but yeah. So after you left Atlanta, what was your next job?
So I was like, it's been a year and a half and I need to sort of take the next step and really do. Yes, I am a designer, hardcore graphic design. I love it. But I think the next step for me was really to get deep into art direction that
Okay.
I've always wanted to be like my final, not final, but
Right.
in your creative process, it's like art direction would be like the one thing that I want to do as the next step. So I started applying for jobs again and looking around. And then FCB Help New York was like, hey, we, you're great. Your work is great. We want to hire you. And I was like, in 2 weeks, they told me this. And I was still in Atlanta. I wasn't expecting that I would have to make a decision in like 2 to 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
But they were like really fast. And I was like, oh my gosh. Um, Literally, I sold out all my furniture, emptied my apartment in 2 weeks, and I uh, landed at the airport. It's a very surreal thing that I think about now. Straight from LaGuardia to FCB Health, like
Really? Oh,
with
wow.
my
With your luggage?
luggage. I was like,
Wow.
it was like that kind of a, I wouldn't say a roller coaster, but it was adventurous. Just that whole process.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, that was late 2018.
Okay, now on your LinkedIn, it said at one point you worked for Gensler Architects.
Yes, yes. So it
How
was,
was, and no, I really asked that because my brother worked for Gensler. He's an architect. He worked for Gensler in Charlotte. So I was just wondering how he's left there and he's gone someplace else now. But and I've visited him once or twice at his office. But
yes.
how was working at an architecture firm compared to working at an ad agency?
So, but I was at Gensler for a very short period of time
Okay.
after I was, there was one person that I knew from before from SCAD days. She referred me there, and it was like I was like, no, it's what I liked about picking that job or choosing that job was uh, they did a lot of signage systems for
Okay.
malls, for grocery stores, like just spaces, like branding
Okay.
spaces. So something that is also my interest, like 3D spatial design, but an actual life-size space. So um, having core interest in typography, I was like, oh, this is great. This is hardcore graphic design, but it's just a different application. So let's, try this.
Did you have to use CAD or did you do not
I
have to
didn't,
use it?
no, I didn't have
Okay.
to use CAD. Sort of, we just needed to sort of know in case someone gives you a file and you don't know what's going on.
Right.
But there were other set of interior designers and architects who were on the team, and so we were like helping them design the signages, and they would be like, oh, this is the plan, or this is the front view of the Dollar General store. I don't know, some store.
Right.
And this is where the coffee machine is going to be, and we need a wall graphic which is 20 feet by 30 feet. So that was the scale of the design we had to create for. So something that you create on 8.5 by 11 letter size page, and this whole grocery store wall, like, it just it's still design, but the application can either make it or break it. So I think understanding that scale was a very interesting exercise for me. But I still wanted to like get into art direction. So
Right.
I was like, and as soon as I got this, I was like, yeah, this is it, advertising,
So have you had something, whether it was at Gensler or it's been there at FCB, where you've designed it and then all of a sudden it's out in the real world and you saw it and you're like, for the first time, and like, wow, this is me. I finally got, I still remember the first time I saw a billboard and I shot it. Partially
Uh,
because it was a billboard.
yes.
Secondly, because I had no idea it was going to be a billboard and that wasn't part of the usage. So there were two,
Oh,
there were two,
that must
two
have
thoughts
felt
going through
so
my head at the
amazing.
same time. Yeah.
Yeah, must have felt so amazing. So at Gensler, we we had we had I think it was Dollar General store where
Okay.
they were building another set of stores or spaces, I think, catering to more millennials.
Okay.
And and they were also making some updates to their older stores. So I designed for it. It was approved. I just didn't get to see it in
Oh,
person. So I didn't get to like go to the Dollar General. So I don't know which cities. It was not all the cities, but some cities where they really wanted to target that audience. But as a matter of fact, I know it was approved because I was there. I was just there for like three months
okay.
before this big change happened. Um, and the most fun assignment I think in that short time I did was creating a graphic for the parking space, like a wall graphic for the parking space of bicycles at the NCR headquarters, right in Midtown Atlanta.
Oh, wow.
So again, I don't know, I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they were like really upgrading the building and the headquarters just down the street. I was able to visit it once, but that was the sort of, I know it was into the client books and getting approval and stuff, but I don't know. I think maybe I should go and see
Yeah, you
if
need
this.
to go check it out. Yeah. What would you say your favorite project's been so far that you've done, no matter where, whether it's FCB or someplace else?
Favorite project, I think would be the typography research papers that I've written, a couple of them over the past few years. I just like to look at typography from a little research and case study point of view,
Okay.
as opposed to just creating cool lettering and, just creating new stuff all the time, but something to look at the history, analyze why things were the way they were, and how they, most importantly, how they impacted the population at that time,
Okay.
and understanding the purpose. So I think looking at that also just makes a creative person more attuned with what they're doing in their present process. So for me, that's how it helps. So those couple of papers that I've written, for two of them were for Typography Day,
Well,
which
that's cool.
happens every year in India, and it's hosted by Industrial Design Center, which is part of the Indian Institute of Technology, Mumbai, which is like a very privileged, prestigious school where handful students get through out of the billions who are applying
Oh,
there.
wow.
But they have this design center, which is very which is great, and they usually have conferences every year specifically for typography, and they not only invite, but they invite different keynote speakers all around the world who are like educators, typographers, hardcore type designers.
Wow.
And it gets super nerdy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gets super nerdy. You're like, am I in a design, like a design school? But because this is getting super nerdy now. But it's the other side of design that is important to know. And so two of the papers I wrote were published, and I had a chance to present them there.
Oh, very cool.
One was 2016, the other one was 2019. And then there was this TypeCon 20 TypeCon that happens every year here in the US. Last year it was in Portland, where I submitted a proposal and then I got selected to speak at the event. And again,
Wow.
there were like hardcore type designers, software engineers who who were working, but typography and font design or type design was their area of focus,
Okay.
or like because you have to digitize the font and apply it on different systems. So
Yeah.
it was a very niche field, and I got to meet some really cool people. And so TypeCon 2023 would be one of the highlights, I think, in my design journey so far. So yeah.
So do you, when you see things out in the world, ads, whatever, do you criticize the fonts that they're in and the typography?
Um, I do it.
I mean,
I
even if it's just in your
catch
head, you
them.
go, I could have
Yes,
done that better.
yes. I do. I am able to like subconsciously catch what could be better and not just what could be better, what's not working.
Right.
Sometimes things are just like not working here, working in that space, or oh, this is legitimately an oversight, which is those things are like hard to miss for me because my brain and my eyes are so trained for that. Subconsciously, you see something. um I mean, I also, when I was a student, it was easy to give a very critical judgment. And, when you see something, oh, I could have done this better. But
Yeah.
I think being in the industry, working for like 6 years now, understanding what the process is, it's not just me creating something, but goes through different levels of approval. There are so many limitations that come through, and you have to work with those limitations and make it as presentable as possible. So I think having that wisdom as a little mature designer has kept me from being that judgmental.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, maybe something came, you know.
Translation, the client said no, we don't want it that way. And you're like, this is much better. And they still said no. And then you had to put it the way they wanted
let's
it.
let's just use Arial everywhere.
Yeah. 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 I have
So
clients who do similar stuff like this would be great if we shot this way. And they're like, no, we need to do it this way. I'm like, it's not okay. And I will try and explain it. And they say no. And I go, all right. And we go ahead and do it the way they want to do it. Because ultimately they're paying for it. So,
yeah,
I try and do the same thing. Try not to be too critical sometimes of photography. I see and like, okay, that was for a client. I'm sure they picked that out and that's the way they want it shot. So I would assume it's the same thing with the typography and the design and everything else.
yeah. And sometimes also I feel yes, clients do know their brand slightly better than
Right.
me, for example, who's going to be designing their stuff for say 6 months, for example. So even though they sometimes, many times, may not have that design acuity or a complete sense of it, but it's challenging to accept that, oh, the best option hasn't been chosen. So what can I do with this third option I have? So it is, I think, challenging to like make peace and find the best way possible to present it. Um, but yes, I've become less critical and be like,
Working in the health space, does was it the FDA has to oversee everything or somebody has to,
yes,
some government agency, right?
yes, yes, yes,
Do
yes.
they ever make you have to change anything for the design, or is that mostly just the wording that's put with, you have to say this on the ad, or you have to take this off of that, or that's got to go because of this thing or that thing, but they're not really messing with your design at all. How's that work?
No, they do comment on everything. They do
Yeah,
comment on every element that they see in that two-dimensional space, or even a motion picture,
yeah,
big visual. So if it's like, oh, this emoji that you're using, for example, in this um, social media ad, or just a poster, or a,
yeah,
cover of the brochure, whatever, this emoji is too, it's smiling too much. This needs to be slightly, then you need to change this, make it little less excited.
Right.
This is, so so they do comment on everything, and definitely the words. But I feel words are sort of, to be very honest and frank, that words are easier to fix
Hmm.
than something that's visual, because everything is interconnected. If I'm
Right.
having 5 to 6 visual elements in an ad lob, changing one thing affects the storytelling and the visual appeal of everything else.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's, I found that extremely challenging, as opposed to, oh, can we change this 5-letter word to a 3-letter word? And then you work around it, and it's like, okay, this is fine.
Right.
But when they say, oh, change this element, and you're like, no, but then we're using this element in 10 other pieces, so that gets
Yeah.
affected. So it's like it's a puzzle. It's a very chaotic puzzle that seemingly never comes together.
What would you say, based like just I guess with that, but what would you say has been the most challenging project you've had? I mean, you don't have to name client or anything, but just overall, what would you say has been the most challenging thing you've had to deal with?
I think the most challenging thing, especially in the health space, because I've done more of the health side
Mhm.
of the advertising till now, uh, is just getting the legal team on board and explaining to them, like really explaining to them that this is your intention, and the focus group is okay with this. But a lot of times, because art is so subjective and visuals are so subjective,
Mhm.
they can be easily misunderstood, even though the intention of the creative team has not been that. So I think explaining the story that you want to tell through this particular visual to the legal team and getting them on board is the most challenging part.
I've heard that. I was talking to someone else, and they said they had an ad. It was also a health client, and there was a book in the ad, and the book said something on the spine that was very, very difficult to read. Basically, she said, unless you got a magnifying glass and put it up to it, but it was something to the point of, I don't know, say it was like fully cure you of blah, blah, blah. But it didn't have anything to do with necessarily what they were selling, but just say it had something on the book that kind of had that kind of feeling to it.
Yeah.
She said the legal team made them go in and take that out. She said, and you would have to hold a magnifying glass up to it to see what it said. But they said and it had nothing to do really with the ad. It just happened to be the book.
Book.
And
Oh,
but they had to
wow.
take it off. They had to at least take that title off of the book, so you couldn't see it anymore because they're afraid that somebody would see it and then go, "Hey, I saw in this book in your ad that it fully cures me," and it didn't, or whatever it happened to
Yeah.
be.
They
Seems
would
like a
make that
lot of little,
connection,
yeah, little
and then,
nitpicky stuff.
yeah, very, very nitpicky. And I think initially it took me a while to adjust to this kind of
I
feedback.
bet.
Like, oh no, but this is this is not what I want to say.
Yeah.
But no, 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 it's the legal team, and they usually have to protect the brand and the future consequences, if any, that may come by. And then you sort of, your brain sort of starts being attuned to those things when you're actually brainstorming, at the brainstorming stages itself. So then you're like, okay, no, 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 I need to avoid this.
Right.
I need to avoid that. So which helps, but undoubtedly super challenging.
Oh, I'm sure. Do you go on? So far with what you've been doing at FCB, do you have photo shoots or commercials or motion projects and that you've worked on, and do you go on set for those things when they happen, or do you just kind of help them get it rolling and then you hang out back at the office?
Uh, so far, I have just helped them get rolling, brainstorming, storyboarding, even sort of planned the wardrobe for a photo shoot,
Oh, wow.
worked with photographers with retouching, and help them with uh, just what's needed for a photo shoot. But I haven't had a chance yet to, that's my next goal,
Yeah.
yet to be on a TVC set, and hopefully soon. That's definitely a goal. Um, but other than handling the production sort of on paper and in the backstage, let's say,
Right.
of the process. Yes, we've done videos that, we've sort of stitched the videos together that were given to us, or created some creative concepts which were in the video format by using Getty videos, which
Okay.
is like thousands of pages you go through and then you find two videos.
Right. Oh,
And
yeah.
you
Yeah.
So I think that's much more challenging than being on a set and being like, okay, this is how we want to shoot, wrap up, and then that's it, post production and editing.
Yep.
Um, so so from video perspective, that's been my experience of like taking something that's existing and then just telling a story from that. Uh, so that's been very enriching. I think I like that part a lot about the art direction. Yeah.
Yeah. That's, do you have, so the ones where you haven't used the stock footage, do
Mhm.
you have a producer who brings you, say, the director or the photographer and like gives you a list, or do you, how much say do you have in that at the art? Because you've just, how long have you been senior art director?
Senior art director for like 2.5 years, 2 years.
Okay. So
Yeah.
between art director and senior art director, do you have a lot of control over that, or is that more like a creative director and client kind of thing where they
I
control it, or
I do get a chance to recommend.
okay,
Uh, when I have uh, I have like my own cheat sheet where like, oh,
right,
I saw his work, or I met this person at this event, photography event, and hey, we're concepting, and then I'm like, this is this concept that I'm working on, um, sort of matches the style or just the aesthetics of what this photographer has to offer, and they already have that sort of work, so
right,
it's a little
yeah,
easy to like share it with the creative director who would then be on board or not on board, but they have been open to that,
well, that's good, that's
they
great,
just, yeah, they are like always like, hey, if you see a cool illustrator just while you're walking on the beach, just let us know, and then we just send those information. And just particularly at FCB, I know that they have like a um, library and a set of creatives and vendors uh, outside.
right,
So we get a chance to sort of recommend them as well, and then they add it to that list of
okay,
existing. And then, when someone in the agency needs like, oh, hey, we're looking at this, and then they'll just be like, oh, we already have these 10 people. Just take a look. Maybe it matches what you're looking for. So there is this creative library there, which is also very helpful.
well, that's cool. So is your goal, what is your, say at FCB anyway, what would your goal be, or any, just not even at FCB, just any ad agency? Do you want to eventually be a creative director, a group creative director, a chief creative director, or do you want to do something like totally different at some point, do you think?
I do want to definitely be a creative director in future.
Now, my
Um,
question about that one is, at
yeah.
least my understanding is once you hit the creative director level, you spend most of your time approving and tweaking concepts as opposed to actually coming up with them and designing them and doing them yourself. Would
Yes.
that be an issue? Like if you when you become creative director, you think you'll be able to like just back off and go, okay, that looks great, but let's move this here or let's do this differently and that kind of thing.
I would love to, at some point share my experience and wisdom that I've
Mhm.
got through all these years with another team, or say a younger team, or um, and then also see, let's say 20 years from now or 15 years from now,
Yeah.
they are going to have a different background, education background, a different level of creativity. I think it'll be a different dynamics to see how that works.
Hmm.
Um, but not just climb the ladder to a creative director's role, but I do want to keep honing my craft on the side. I just love doing creative projects. It
Right.
could be I come up with an idea and I'm like, okay, how can I execute this? Oh, let's use Play-Doh. So I started a series just creating letters out of Play-Doh. And even though
Wow.
Play-Doh is very like cute and kids play with that and stuff, but then I was like, how can I take this a notch up and not make it childish, but have that childlike um process, but also make it should look like it's designed, this piece
Right.
is designed. So, things like that. Like I started learning origami the other day. I just bought a kit from one of the stores in Chelsea Market, and I was like, oh, I'm going to do this. And I just, when I'm in my free time, I just like fold small pieces of paper, and it's like, oh, this becomes a tortoise. This is how cool. Like when you approach the same thing at a different um age in your life as a creative, it's just so I don't know, it's your mind just opens to so many other things. You're like, oh my God, this is not just for kids. This is for senior creatives. They need to really hone their craft and just play with a different material. And I
Yeah.
think it it helps me take a back seat from just another creative job for an
Right.
agency or for a client, or it helps me just take back my creative powers and be like, I want to do something completely different.
I
So
think you
I do
have to just
experiment
keep
with that.
yourself fresh. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I
Yes.
think playfulness is what is easier to lose when you are doing everyday ad work, client work.
Yeah.
And I experienced that in my first 2, 3 years in New York. Like, I was like, no, no, no. I need to feel the sense of wonder when I'm doing something.
Hmm.
This is I'm doing great design, but this is getting a little monotonous maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe there is less playfulness to the creative process. So I was like, how can I break this? Because the reason I'm doing this comes from that initial motivation of being able to, just wonder about things and also have playfulness in the creative process. So I was like, I need to go back to the blackboard and do my thing. So I keep doing, illustrations and typography, lettering on the side,
Hmm.
just to keep be true to my craft basically, and not just do a day job of an art director.
Yeah. I think you have to. I think that personal work that you do for yourself
Yes.
seeps into what you do for your clients. Because if you didn't, like you said, you just start getting stale. You just start doing the same kind of thing over and over. And I've I still shoot a lot of stuff, like personal stuff for myself, because that's what helps me, get into the other stuff when I'm shooting for clients. It keeps me, I guess it just keeps me excited about my job and about what I do, as opposed to just going, all right, well, here's another whatever I'm
One
doing.
more photo shoot.
Yeah, yeah, it's just another photo
One
shoot
more
with
location.
something. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Different location, different client, but they're still going to make me shoot the stuff they want me to shoot, that kind of thing. Where if I do my own thing, I can come into that shoot fresh and go, you know what? I just got everything out. I get to come in here. I will do stuff for you guys. And even then, it kicks in some stuff while you're talking to the client, like, hey, what if we did this? And they may like it, they may not, but at least you have that flowing through you.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think, as you said, to add to that, you also know that, okay, I'm getting too comfortable with
Hmm.
this process. I need to break. And I think doing some personal stuff on the side constantly just shakes you up a little bit and keeps you fresh all the time. So,
Yeah, because I think if
absolutely.
you get too comfortable to the point where the client starts to go, okay, this is all starting to look, and then they start looking elsewhere. So I try and remind myself of that too. Is like every shoot, no matter how many times I've shot for them,
Yeah.
make this one as good or better, hopefully better than the last time, because it could be the last time I shoot for them if I don't, keep that standard up. If you just kind of slack off, then they're like, all right, well, we can get this somewhere else, probably cheaper, kind of a
Yeah,
thing.
it always comes down to the budget.
Yeah, exactly.
The
Yeah,
quality.
plenty of
And
times it comes down to the budget.
budget all the time.
What would be
So
your advice for somebody who wants to become an art director, especially an art director at an agency in New York? What would you say helped get you to that point? What would you advise somebody who's like just in school and that's what they want to do?
I think focus on your craft more than just getting a portfolio and trying to impress a creative director or creative directors. I think um, if you really love your craft, you will be able to convince people that you can do better things, even though at the moment you don't have things that they expect. But in my experience, creative directors are always looking at that spark in you
Mhm.
that, hey, this person loves their craft so much that they have the potential to, they can take up the challenge. So
Right.
they have that confidence. And I think that doesn't come from just showing 5 projects in your portfolio, no matter how exceptional they are. I think your drive to really hone your craft shines at the end of the day. So if you want to do art direction and you want to really pursue art direction in like any industry, whether it's advertising agency or in-house agency or in a different setup, I think just just love your craft, because if you do, then you don't need an outside motivation or inspiration. You will always keep leveling up, and you will always keep checking on yourself that, hey, I need to do, it's been a while, 6 months, what am I doing now, so I think
Right.
that would be my basic standard advice for
I think that's
sure.
good. I think that's very good advice. Yeah. Because I think it really does. It shows, especially for creative directors who know what they're doing, they can look at somebody in school and then once they talk to them and
Yeah.
get a feel, they're going to know, okay, this is what they've done. We like it. It's good. But I can tell there's something in this person that's
Yes.
really going to make them great at what they do. All right. So I've got two last questions for you, and then I'll let you go.
Okay.
One I just added, so I'm this year you're the guinea pig, so who knows? Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. What would be, do you know how like baseball players have walk-up music recently?
Oh
Like,
wow. Yes. Yes.
or
Yes.
wrestlers or whoever, I don't know, boxers. What would be your walk-up music if you were showing up? Say you're coming on set someplace and it's all about you. What would be your walk-up music?
Oh my goodness. This is a very tough question for me.
Yeah, I have no idea. If somebody asks me, I'm like, I have no clue.
Okay. So it's wow, what would be the music? I love music. I have a varied taste for different kinds of music, from Indian classical to Western classical to EDM to, punk rock and things like that. I think so. It would be because I really love this. It's just music though. By one of my favorite DJs and musicians, Kygo. I just attended his concert on
Yeah.
Saturday. So I think
Okay.
his one of his singles, I think, was Firestone. I just love the vibe of the whole piece. And it just makes you feel like, you not on top of the world, but very confident, and you are, just makes you feel like you can take up the uncertainty and challenges that come your way with a very grateful and positive attitude. I have to add these two
Okay.
things. Not just be like, oh, I'm feeling on top of the world. It doesn't mean anything to me, but
Okay. I like that. See, you did great.
Milestone.
Yeah. All right. So, last question then. So far, and this can be just in life in general. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the advertising world, but if it is, it is. What would be the most interesting, coolest, or strangest thing that's happened to you ever?
Coolest, interesting thing that's happened to me.
It can
Oh,
be,
wow.
any one of those things. It doesn't have to be all of them, but
So interesting, coolest, and strangest thing.
yeah.
Um, I need a few seconds to think about it. The ones that I need, I can share here.
Yes, right.
No, it's never it's not been that wild, but oh wow. Um, I think the coolest thing I would say, or the main highlight would be, uh, I didn't know I would get selected to this study abroad program for 2 months in France in 2009, 2010. And I was just like, I was like, oh, I need to get my passport. I didn't even have my passport at that point. So it was
Really?
like, yeah, I don't know, it was expired or something, and I just didn't, my parents didn't bother. The kids are not going anywhere.
Right.
You're not going anywhere. So I think, and I didn't even tell anyone that I applied for it. And
Oh,
I
wow.
get this email, and I was like, oh, shoot, this is an expensive trip. I need to tell my parents that, okay. But even though it was fully sponsored, I mean, I had to figure out the flight tickets. But I think it was one of the coolest and the most interesting things that have happened, um, which really added to the personality I am today and changed the trajectory of life. From there onwards, my process of making decisions was just so different, open-minded, and much more confident. I think if I wouldn't have taken that, oh, I'm just applying to this thing in France. I don't know how far this country is, but I'm so glad I did. So that would be the coolest thing has ever happened. Like
That's a good answer.
being with students who are from 40 different countries, traveling them across France, and trying to speak French as much as possible because we had to speak French. Like that was the criteria.
Oh, nice.
And then even learn from several events that they had hosted for the international students. So I think that would be the coolest, far coolest things. I mean, I'm still in touch with so many of them. It's just pretty wild.
Well, that's great. That's a good answer. I like
Thank you.
that. Well, thank you so much. This was
Thank
fun
you, Mark.
talking to you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm glad. I mean, I'm glad to, share my journey and my design journey so far. And thank you for inviting me.
Oh,
And
absolutely. Yeah, it was totally, totally worth it.